Florida, where we run our consulting business and our speakers business throughout the Americas region. We are very fortunate today to have with us two incredible guests, digital transformation and marketing guru Mayur Gupta, who joins us from New York, and Ian Khan, a futurist rather, who joins us from Toronto, Canada. Welcome to you both, Mayur and Ian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.
So the plan for the next hour, everyone, is that we're going to have first of all, start off with a Q&A with Mayur Gupta and follow that with a fireside chat with Ian. We'll be taking questions from the audience, so please use the questions. Curating those questions will be my colleague Ivan Avanades, who is the Global Director of Speakers and Conferences at Thinking Heads, and he joins us from Madrid. Hi, Ivan.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today?
So let's start with Mayur Gupta. Mayur is a digital evangelist, and he's a marketing technologist and an innovation thought leader. He served as the head of global growth and marketing at Spotify, the music streaming giant, and most recently was the chief marketing officer at Freshly, an innovative delivery app for healthy and fresh meals in the United States. Mayur was also the first ever global chief marketing technologist at Kimberly-Clark, one of the world's biggest consumer packaged goods companies. Mayur is a global speaker on digital transformation and a sought-after consultant and advisor to companies all over the world on marketing technology and digital transformation. Mayur, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for glorifying my rather moderate experience. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, my first question to you is, and you're in New York City. I know you weren't there for the whole time, but you're at the center, or New York was at the center of the global coronavirus crisis. And I'm just curious as to how has that impacted your thinking over the last 3 months about digital transformation and the future of business and the future of marketing?
Yes, well, we moved to New York last year, and there's a lot happening. One of the things that inspired us to come here for what I do, there are two hubs, at least in this country, primarily. It's either you go to the Silicon Valley and SF or you come here. But we felt New York has a belief system, it has values, which me and my family resonate with, and is very, very important for us. But without getting too philosophical, I think COVID has been a shocking change for the world, and everyone is still going through it pretty much across the globe. From a marketing standpoint, I feel it's been a rather much needed shock and awakening call. And I say that because I look at marketing in the last 50 years has gone through three broad phases or three eras of marketing. Very quickly, era one, kind of 1970s to the 2000s, I call it the dark age of marketing, or call it the age of madmen of marketing, where it was all about the Midas touch and the most witty ad, and consumers had no choice. You saw an ad, and as long as it made you laugh, you went to the shelf and bought it. Right? It was a spray and pray because the tools didn't exist. The data was still hard to get access to, and marketing primarily, for the most part, sat in these big CPG companies. Product and tech companies didn't really have the function of marketing or the role of a CMO. Then came the second era, the second phase from the 2000 onwards, and I call it the decade of digital confusion, where digital became a thing. There was proliferation of these marketing tech and ad tech. A lot of data started to come in, and the world thought, myself included, hey, digital is a thing that you bolt on. And after a few years, we realized, well, it wasn't digital marketing. It was marketing and running business in a digital world where the consumers don't think digital and analog. For them, this is the life they live. And then the last pendulum shift happened was in 2007, 8 onwards with iPhone, with Facebook, and a lot of VC money and innovation became table stakes, and a lot of great ideas and disruption happened. That led to this culture of growth at all cost. And while it was fantastic for us to give birth to multi-billion-dollar companies that are now becoming trillion-dollar companies, it did something else as well to the function of marketing. It took the soul away from marketing, because all that mattered was that you saw my ad and you clicked on it, and I saw same-day gratification. And it didn't matter who you were, it didn't matter what you wanted. My job was to just bring you in. And that worked very well. It drew a lot of numbers, in the last few years, but that kind of a, knee-jerk reaction from a complete black box to a world which is completely binary, only black and white, with no soul, with no purpose. Both of those have a short runway. So what COVID has done is brought that shock to that growth at all costs, soulless, purposeless marketing, where you're driving, simply you're pushing for discounts and you're creating fear and you're driving that excitement to just click. COVID brought an end to that, at least for now, where it has forced everybody to go back to the drawing board and ask ourselves, why? Why do you exist? And because there was no media opportunity left. So we were forced to think that we have to be empathetic, that we have to listen to the consumer. We have to converse, we have to build that trust. And COVID forced everybody to do that. You didn't have an option. And so I don't know what the future is going to be. I can only hope that for a consumer, which is far more consensus, has far more choice and access and control, will force all of us to not find the future path in either one of those extremes, because we absolutely cannot afford to be only about purpose and no profitability and no business. We also cannot be only about profitability and business with no purpose. So we have to now find that equilibrium. We have a good start, and it was needed.
I was really looking forward to today's conversation, because to think about the future is actually kind of a bomb today. It's kind of a refreshing thought, because the future has always been scary. But the present is actually scarier now than the future. And that's the first time, I think, in my lifetime that I've ever experienced this. So to think out, to a future that maybe is better than the past we've come from is a bomb, really. So do you ask yourself that same question? Why do you exist? And if so, how does that change? I mean, you've been a marketing guy for so many years. So how would you change your own trajectory if you're thinking along those terms?
Well, interestingly, I'm the most misfit marketer, because I'm an engineer by trade, by education, and by first half of my career, I was building stuff. In fact, I hated marketing, and I didn't care about marketers that much because I thought they could build stuff. And when you're an engineer, you only have respect for people who build stuff because you think that's the only way you change. Now, of course, I was wrong. Marketing is the best function that exists on the planet. But jokes aside, I started my career as an engineer, and I was very fortunate that one of my mentors in the mid-2000s gave me an opportunity to become a product lead for leading an ad tech and a marketing tech product. That's how I evolved from pure technology to taking my first baby steps in the world of marketing and advertising, but from the product data side. And since then, I've learned so much from incredible thought leaders and marketers out there who've taught me that convergence of growth and data and technology, but also with empathy, serendipity, and irrationality. But coming back to your question, Ian, about the future and the future being better than where we are right now, and what are we all doing? What are we all changing? So look, personally, my whole life and my family's life is based on Buddhism. That's a life philosophy we practice, but it's not just a theoretical life philosophy. It's a life philosophy of courage and compassion and hope. And it teaches me every single day that when you don't find hope, you have to create it. And you have to create it for your own self and for others. And for me, that's not abstract. It's not something that I think about in the morning. I challenge myself to think about that at work, on the streets, at home, every single moment. So I think as marketeers, as professionals, we all have a responsibility to build brands, to create solutions, to apply technology, to make the world a better place, to remove friction, to create hope, to bring empathy in the solution. And in fact, one thing that I'm extremely passionate about that I may, dedicate myself as my next mission is figure out a way on how you humanize money, because I think the world is run by money right now, but it lacks empathy and it lacks compassion. So working on some ideas with some great entrepreneurs to figure out what does that really mean and what can we change where we don't want to create a world where you're telling people not to think about money because it's important. But then just using that in isolation is not enough. How do you bring empathy and gratitude and appreciation to that? So that's how I think, and that's where I would love for my future to be.
Okay, so for the last 10 or 15 years, we have spoken a lot about, corporate social responsibility and about, brand and brand value. And more recently, there has been a trend toward conscious capitalism and brands that exude certain values, right? And people, and I was never very sure whether that was real or not. Values that they can relate to. Do you think we've sort of come to a point, an inflection point where that's going to become real, that brands that represent real value and sustainability, environmental sustainability, that sort of thing, that has real impact in the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And trust me, we can spend 3 days, not just the last 10 minutes talking about that. I'll share my own belief, and then I will go all the way down very tactically, because if I only share my theoretical perspective, it would not be enough. So my simple belief is 1000% yes. But it's with a caveat that I do not believe in brands and businesses that only are standing up for purpose and not the incrementality in the business, because that doesn't give you wheels. You can't change the world if you do not know how to run business and how to make it profitable. It'll give you only a theoretical mission. You will not bring change. At the same time, if you have an incredibly fast growing business where the mission and purpose exists on slides to serve the business, that also is a very short runway, perhaps even shorter. So first of all, it's not an either or. It's the world that we're living in is where the business and growth amplifies the purpose and the mission, and the purpose and the mission amplifies the business and the growth and sustainability in the future. Now, why is that the reason? Why is something different happening now? Because there are businesses, there are a number of them, who've actually become multi-billion-dollar businesses on the foundation of why they exist, their purpose and their mission. It doesn't exist only in board decks. It's because the consumer has transformed their thinking, their mindset. The Gen Zs, our kids, do not buy stuff because it gives them value. They buy stuff because they believe in the rationale behind why you created something. That's the big shift, because the disruption that we've seen in the last 30, 40 years, every single disruption is not the genesis of that or the sustained disruption hasn't happened because the investment of technology or data. It has happened because the consumers triggered it. And this is yet another disruption that the consumers are triggering. They are going to not consume products that they do not believe in, that they don't believe have values that, that are common or shared with their own values. And there couldn't be a better world for the consumers to shape it, simply because they have so much choice, right? Loyalty doesn't exist anymore because they have choice, they have access, they have the power to discover. So if you don't stand up for something, well, there'll be 10 other incredible brands and businesses that do have a foundation that matters.
Okay, great. We have some questions, I think, from the audience. So Yvonne, do you want to start with the first one?
Yeah, sure. We have some questions from our audience today, and also from some media that covering this webinar. So first one would be, what do you think, Mayur, about the speed in using machines? Will COVID-19 be an accelerator, or will it decrease the speed of including machines and AI in our lives?
So just so I can repeat that question, what do I think is the future of AI and machine learning in our lives?
If COVID-19 will be an accelerator or a decrease of the speed of including AI and machines in our lives.
Got it. Okay. So I think overall, one thing that COVID-19 has done is it hasn't brought anything new, but it has been a catalyst. It has accelerated the transformation for companies that were giving it 5 years to transform themselves, which is, let's just call it in a macro bucket, AKA digital transformation, or learning how to run a business in a digital world where the word digital disappears from their vernacular, in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, there are many organizations that, that don't use that word. In my last 8 years, where I've worked, that word just doesn't get used. In fact, we used to penalize that, as we were going through the transformation. But COVID has given two options to the world for companies that are still thinking digital as being a thing or digital as being a destination. One is either transform ASAP or perish. There is no middle ground. And so from that standpoint, it has also done one more thing which I should mention from a consumer standpoint as well, from that landscape. So many of the businesses, because of the business model, whose core audience and their total addressable market focus on the Gen X's, the older millennials, the empty nesters. And they felt, look, there is such a big market there that I don't really need to transform myself at this pace because I'm not really addressing Gen Zs, who are, shopping while they're walking and things like that. Well, that has changed now because that the population of older millennials and Gen Xers who were refraining from living a digital life because they still enjoyed reading books which are physically printed, they have now been forced to enter that ecosystem. How many of your uncles and aunts are actually using Zoom to talk to the family members? Now, I'm not saying they will stay there forever. Many of them may perhaps go back. When COVID restrictions come out, we're all going into restaurants and bars and don't want to come back home. But they have tasted the convenience and the impact this is having in life. And while they will go back and we all want fresh air all over again, they are now in that ecosystem, which means the total addressable market, the TAM for the business world has totally expanded suddenly, and businesses will not have an option. And that includes AI, that includes ML, that includes e-commerce, that includes subscription mindset, one-click purchase. And AI and ML is just intelligence. It's just complicated terminologies we use, but at the end, it's just getting smarter. It is ways where businesses get smarter, where we can predict what you want even before you know that you want something. And that is inevitable.
Okay, so connected with this, with another question, it says, how to predict the patterns of consume from now once the market had changed because of COVID-19? You have a secret formula to share with us today?
Oh boy, if I had it, I will be on my stock platform, E-Trade or something, buying stocks right now. Look, there is, I don't have a formula. I would love to find somebody who has one because they better be the first trillionaire in the world. But the one formula I do have is, doesn't matter where you go, what you build, what business model you're in. If you're not obsessed by adding incremental consumer value every single day, your runway as a business is short. So there's only one formula. And I've heard Jeff Bezos talk about it a lot, being a day one company, being consumer obsessed, not on decks, not on paper, but in reality, which means that sometimes you make choices to lose on some short-term KPIs because you believe that is valuable for your customer base. Because that short-term investment to create that wow moment, to change people's lives, actually has an incremental long-term impact. It has multifold impact on your lifetime value. But if you flip it, if you're solely focused on short-term KPIs and hitting profitability at the cost of the value to the consumer, people are eventually going to leave you because somebody else is going to have ready to give them that incremental value for the same price, or the same value for a lower price, and they're going to leave.
So you've been talking before on purpose marketing. We have this last question for you. Is it time for high impact brands and private companies to take a step forward using their assets, their budgets, and their talent to serve the collective needs of a society that has lost confidence in the political class?
That's a great question. I do want to clarify something. I'm not proposing a new bucket of marketing called purpose marketing at all. In fact, I would challenge that mindset. There's only two types of marketing, always been: good marketing or bad marketing. we've just bifurcated it with these old cool things and brand marketing, performance marketing, content, mobile. It's just marketing. And what I am pushing for and will keep challenging is that even when your marketing's focus is a very tangible, measurable KPI like acquisition, AKA performance marketing, direct response marketing, even then it needs to have a purpose. And if you are, and on the flip side, if your marketing effort is more to create demand or drive reach, AKA a little bit more top of funnel marketing, which isn't really creating that FOMO and is not really giving you a button to click on to make a purchase, even that type of marketing should be measurable, ultimately to determine what has been the impact to the business. In other words, I'm challenging myself to not isolate and separate purpose from growth. That's the challenge, but that's the opportunity where you use data to prove the incrementality of a trusted brand that has a mission and a purpose. Because if I can't prove it, I can't convince a CEO or the board to keep investing in it. So purpose and mission is important, but it cannot be an abstract theory. It has to be able to prove that impact. At the same time, business and growth cannot survive in isolation. It has to be driven. The GPS for any business, for any product roadmap, for any strategy has to be the framework, that has been created out of the purpose, out of the why you created this product or the company to begin with.
So we have a couple of minutes for just very last question. Which can be the main impact of COVID-19 in global consumer trends ahead?
Look, I think on one, I've kind of shared that one perspective that it's brought the world closer together. I think it's accelerated the AKA digital transformation across the globe. It's definitely helped in driving faster disruption in communication technology. It's completely changed the working environment, the working culture. The companies, it's one other thing that I didn't mention is it's also been an eye-opener for organizations that have a weak culture, that do not have, that are not based on a value of trust and transparency, because it doesn't matter what kind of technology infrastructure they have, whether they're using a Zoom or Microsoft Teams, etc. Without that trust, inbuilt in your DNA, you're going to find it hard to survive in this distributed work from home universe. So it's been a good call there. I will tell you also, look, we are a very resilient species. So yes, we are right now in this conundrum of COVID crisis, but we are going to fly through this. We'll go back to the point of optimism and hope and courage, and this will be behind us. And I just hope that one thing that each one of us hopefully doesn't forget is what this has taught us, is to believe in the oneness of us and the universe, oneness of us and the environment, and have a lot more respect and appreciation. And that includes people, that includes consumers, that includes brands, and that includes nature. It's not isolated. You can't have $1 trillion business where you don't give a damn about what's happening to sustainability, to a sustained future, to the world, to the world that we leave behind for our kids. So it's what this has taught us is this is an interconnected web. And the time it took for one part to have an impact on the other is shrinking very, very rapidly. So you do something, the butterfly effect that can cause an earthquake, is going to happen very rapidly. So we have to be a lot more conscious about what we do today.
Well, like I said, it's refreshing to talk about the future, especially with Mayur Gupta, because it feels good. It sounds like we're going toward a better place. Mayur, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck in leading the way to show us how to put soul back in marketing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys, and all the best, Ian. I'm going to miss you, but I'm going to be checking out some of the notes, and I look forward to catching up. Thanks for having me over.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayur.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, so now we get to have a conversation with Ian Khan. Ian is a longtime friend of Thinking Heads. He's a futurist. He's a prolific author and a filmmaker, and he's been talking for the last 20 years about emerging technologies. He's been helping organizations and companies to develop plans to deal with emerging technologies, whether it's AI or blockchain or the Internet of Things. And so Ian, thanks for being here. And I'm super curious, a guy who spends his life focused on the future, how have your teachings, how have your ideas evolved over these last 3 months? I mean, the future has changed dramatically, at least it seems to me, when it comes to work and when it comes to behavior and so on. You're a guy who talks about this. How does it affect the way you think, and how have you changed your thinking about the future?
Thanks, Ian. And Ivan, thank you so much. I also want to thank everybody who's joined in. You've got a couple of, 100+ people online, from, I'm sure, from all parts of the world. I can see so many names out there. I'm going to call out a few names: Anna Samoya, Eric Barguera, Ignacio London, Javier, Josef Thomas. Say, for listening to this webinar, just type hi into the panelist window and the chat window, because I want to say hi to you. I'm in Canada right now, and we're all joined from different parts of the world just to bring to you maybe some collective insights that can help you. So feel free to communicate. Ian, your question is very relevant. Your question is relevant because there's a huge stream of thinking right now, and I'm going to be very open and blunt because our audiences need to know the truth. I really believe we're just going through a cycle. We're going through a cycle of change that has always happened in the world, in our universe, in our society, and these cycles will continue to happen. Look at the Egyptian civilization, look at the Babylonians, the Ottomans, the Mughals, look at any civilization, the Incas, the Mayas, name it. We've all gone through ups and downs. Civilizations have risen and they've gone. And this is a cycle of life. Life is about change. It's about massive amount of change that happens every single day. And my thinking has not changed because of COVID. COVID is just something that has been expected, that was expected to happen, not as a pandemic, but as a change. We've had a tsunami many, many years ago. We have earthquakes, we have floods. We can't just say that, hey, these things are happening out of the blue. No, they're supposed to happen. This is the world we live in. And the world sometimes is very tough on us because it wants to test us. It wants to see what are we made of and what do we really stand for. And that's the big test that we're going through right now. My thinking over the last 20 years has been the same, that we need to adopt to change and adapt ourselves to circumstances that we cannot see. And that's what a futurist does. A futurist doesn't predict. I, as a futurist, don't predict the future and say, well, these 5 things will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. I can't do that. But what I can guarantee will happen in the next 5 to 10 years is a lot of change from different areas, whether it's climate change, it's natural, it's business. Things are always on motion, and companies and people and individuals who adapt to change, who build that resilience, will always succeed. And it doesn't matter to them whether it's what kind of change happens. And so COVID-19 has been a great wake-up call for many people, because I really believe that in today's culture and society, a majority of us, we live in a state of suspended animation. We're so distracted with television, with Netflix, with catching up on Amazon Prime shows, with socializing, going out, enjoying our life, and doing things that that take us away from our problems in life. But there are many people who are focused, many people who are laser focused on their goals, and they sacrifice things in their lives to chase those goals. And we see those examples clearly in our society. People like Warren Buffett, people like Bill Gates, people like Jeff Bezos. And we're talking about Jeff Bezos a lot right now because Amazon is doing really well in the pandemic era. And it's not a matter of chance. It didn't just happen because Jeff Bezos is lucky. It's because he's been ready. He's been building for today. And that's how you become successful. So going back to your question, Ian, and sorry for the long-winded answer, is that we are just going through what we're supposed to go through. What depends, what is the next thing, is how will you respond to it? And that will determine your future.
Okay, so you're a long-term thinker. So the short term hasn't phased you at all, and you're still talking in the same terms you talked about before. So, but everybody else has been woken up, and for some people, it may be too late. For some companies, it may be too late. How are companies supposed to be ready for change? How are they supposed to be future ready? How do they embrace so much change at once? I mean, there's so many things happening in the world that scare the hell out of a lot of people. So how do you be ready for that change?
Absolutely, great question. And that's the billion-dollar, trillion-dollar question right now. How do you get ready for change? I really believe that change is a process, that change is a pre-planned set of actions and set of decisions that you need to make as a leader, as an organization, in order to reduce this risk of being disrupted. Now, disruption is a very common word we're using right now, more so with respect to technology, that, hey, some event will take place, or a competitor will come in, or a new product will come in, and it will, because clients will jump on board the other company. That's a very simple example of change. Dealing with change is, I think, first of all, the ownership of leaders. Leaders need to be ready to manage change, embrace change, accept change every single day. Now, there's a process for accepting change and being future ready. I've taught this for over 20 years, and we've done a lot of incredible work to something called the Future Readiness Score. The Future Readiness Score measures where you are with respect to future readiness, and technology, as you, contrary to what many people may guess, is just one part of being future ready. There's other things at play. Other things such as your culture, the culture of your organization. How strong and how developed is the culture of your organization that if a disruption might happen, that your organization will still be good and it'll be strong? What about the people that you hire? What about the current state of your sales processes, your marketing processes? And Mayur talked a lot about marketing, but where are those right now so that if a disruption happens in the market, you're still going to be ready? So the framework that we talk about, my Future Readiness Score system, has got 8 categories. It's got engagement, learning. Are you a learning organization, or nobody's learning anything and everybody's just performing their tasks? You've got people, accountability, execution. How well do you execute as an organization? Are you someone who's just doing endless meetings day in and day out, or are you actually executing on the plans that you're building every single day? And these are the things that make organizations future ready. You've got technology, you've got partnerships. So all these things combined together make an organization future ready. And think of it as, as a car or an automobile that has to go from one place to the other. And how ready is your car for this journey? You've got to have your view, you've got to have a windshield, you've got to have air in your wheels, you've got to have gas in the car. So it's not enough just to have one part, and a great Ferrari engine that doesn't have wheels, it doesn't work that way. You've got to have all the parts together in the right combination in order for it to go on that journey. And that's kind of the idea behind being future ready. And organizations can embrace the methodology, the tools associated with it, the mindset associated with it, and they can be future ready and resilient to any change that might happen.
Ian, you talk about change as a process, and it's hard to imagine this as a process. This has been a traumatic change, a dramatic and overwhelming change. And you mentioned Jeff Bezos and Amazon. That was a company that obviously is benefiting tremendously from this traumatic change. For a lot of us, it's overwhelming, and we're still trying to figure it out. I mean, we're thinking ahead. We're a good example. We're in the business of, at least part of our business of conferences and speaking engagements, and as you can imagine, our business has been completely flattened. Now, we consider ourselves pretty creative, and we're trying to adapt as quickly as possible. Do you have any other examples of companies or even countries or organizations that were embracing the idea of change before and have therefore been very successful at adapting very quickly to this environment, which is hardly a process. It's more like a tsunami of change.
Yeah. See, many times it's just hard when you get hit by an avalanche. It's hard to just get up and fly out of it. We don't have wings, right? And sometimes we just have to accept that we're not equipped to be all capable of dealing with everything. It's very difficult to do that, especially when you're looking at natural disasters. You're looking at unpredictable economic conditions or a pandemic. Everybody could have expected economies to tank and stock markets to crash, but a pandemic was something that we didn't expect. Having said that, about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a movie that came out with Matt Damon in it called Pandemic, I think, which played this exact scenario about 8 years ago. So if all of us in the world watched that movie and really believed in it and said, hey, this is a real possibility, let's do something about this in case this happens, we might have been in a different place right now. But governments have different priorities, organizations have different priorities, we're busy dealing with other things. So we can't do everything all the time because of the lack of resources. Now I mentioned Jeff Bezos, which you resonated with. There's many other companies that are benefiting that I believe have been in the right place at the right time with the right formula in place, and they have scaled tremendously. Microsoft has benefited exceedingly well because of this, because their Teams platform is being used by everybody, and they've been selling it like crazy. We're on Zoom right now. Zoom has really gone up like this. Their stock prices have gone up. And many other companies, Amazon, of course, or companies have done really, really well. But some of the companies that have suffered are those that have had to shut down their doors. In manufacturing, as an example, in healthcare, as an example, anywhere where there's manufacturing, logistics, organizations have suffered. And the reason for that is not that, they were ill-equipped, they were not ready, but when the entire world shuts down, there's something that, you can't help. You've talked about Thinking Heads as an organization that, and we've done a lot of work together. You help other organizations learn, bring talent and skill to them, bring experts to communities. So you're somebody who brings people together, and you help create that awareness in organizations. And I think this business model is very much based on people. It's a people business, and I travel a lot for this business, and we go together and we travel places. And I think it's just unfortunate that this tsunami has hit us. I really believe the next step to be taken is to explore more on how can we deliver the same value to clients. Clients still want these expertise. Clients still want to know how to drive revenue. They still want to know how to come out of the post-COVID-19 era. They still want to know how to have a post-pandemic playbook for sales or marketing or operations. And so clients and customers and of all kinds are still desperate for change, but it's just the delivery mechanism that needs to change. And I believe going virtual, doing live streams, and blending this is a great opportunity to tell customers, hey, there's options for us to still deliver that knowledge to you. You can still implement the processes. Yes, it's a different packaging, but you still get the same value. And I really believe that leaders who are empowered, organizations and companies who really want to come back out of COVID-19 and jump out back, they should start accepting that message, because it's what they are getting as the medicine and not the delivery package. It's the medicine either as an injection or as a tablet, but it's still the same medicine. And I think I have hope for this. I have hope for this model. I want to learn from all the attendees who are on the live stream right now. And thanks, guys, from Panama and Guatemala and Spain. You guys are sending your highs to me. Thank you so much to all of you. But please make it known to us. What are you thinking and what are you not thinking when it comes to recovery and bouncing back?
Okay, we're gonna go to some questions in a minute, but I wanted to ask you your reaction to Mayur Gupta's thoughts on empathy and value and values. When he talked about putting soul back in marketing, I thought that was very interesting. I just wonder if this notion might creep into your conversation, because when you talk to leaders as well, this idea that not just embracing change, but the idea of putting yourself in other people's shoes, embracing empathy, embracing higher values like, you know, the sustainability of the planet and so on. What's your reaction to that?
I think what Mayur mentioned is great. It's at a DNA level of doing things. I think it's mandatory for every organization to have a purpose, to have a value statement. And I talk a lot about this myself as well, that, you know why you are doing things and for what purpose. What is the reason that why you guys exist? I teach a lot of ikigai as well, which is the Japanese philosophy of knowing why you exist and finding purpose. And so you've got to know who you are. Performing your task every day at work or running an organization, that's not enough. You've got to know what values does it leave out there in the world. I really believe that not just in marketing, but as a salesperson, as a leader, as a CEO, as an operations manager, anybody who's within an organization, you all have to believe in the same values, same value set, same mission that exists for your organization. Until that doesn't happen, organizations don't do well. And that's my recommendation to leaders: is find people who resonate with your values of the organization. And for people who are looking for jobs, who are looking for careers, is look for organizations that have the same value system as you. Maybe you're an environmentalist, maybe you love penguins, maybe you love climate change issues. Find those organizations, find those people where you can have the same conversation. And that point actually is the people point in my philosophy of being future readiness, is people. How do you find people who are the right fit for you? And how do organizations find people, and how do people find organizations that are right fit? I think empathy, seeing how people feel, feeling what they feel, is very necessary in a world today that's blended with different colors, different races, different religions. And it's time that we all create an equalized society. And we're seeing protests right now across the world, and people are standing for Black Lives Matter. It's amazing. There's many different other things that we need to stand up for. I mean, there's civil wars happening in some other places of the world. There's poverty in many places of the world. And we all collectively need to stand for each other, put ourselves in other people's shoes and say, hey, I understand how you feel, and I'm going to support you. So I think it's great that we all can empathize with each other, and we can share that with other people to create a society that's better, that we collectively have more intellectual capabilities to know how other people are doing, how we can add value to them and their lives, and how we can together be better.
Great. So today we have two Ians and an Ivan, which is, I think it's Ian in Russian or something, isn't it, Ivan? Where does that name come from? But it's the same name, right? It's Juan, Ivan, Ian. Anyway,
yeah.
Lots of Ians and Ivans.
I love it.
Yeah. So Ian, or Ivan rather, share some of the questions from the audience, please.
Yeah, so we have some questions from the audience here in Zoom. We have some questions from people that are following as well in different channels of social media, and also some other questions from press that are covering the event as well. I'm starting from Spain. You know, here tourism is a big deal. It's one of the most powerful industries in the country. Yeah. So do you think something could have done to minimize the impact of COVID in this specific sector?
So just to rephrase, would something could have been done?
Yeah, in the past and now. I mean, tourism is a big deal here in most South Latin American countries as well, even in the United States. So any suggestions from your side to prevent and now to try to improve?
Of course. So first of all, I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about tomorrow. I want to talk about how can we make things better? How can we come back out of what we are in right now, right? Let's not think about yesterday. Let's not think about the mistakes we've made or anybody's made. But if we spend more time thinking about what is possible, I think we have a better chance of succeeding and coming out of this faster. So let's do that. I really believe the whole initiative of physical distancing opposed to social distancing. Please do not social distance. Socially, we must come closer together. So the physical distancing is great. Using protective equipment, whether it's gloves, whether it's your masks, it's all good. It's all nice to have because it just helps take the risk away. Whether these things are factually and actually proven to be correct, and there's many theories out there, I personally don't want to go into all of that because I just want to be safe. I want to create a safe place for my family, my friends, my colleagues, my peers, so that we can continue with the world. I really believe we should follow PPE recommendations, but we should also push our legislators, our governments, our municipalities to work harder to find ways of doing things in a better way. Whether it's tourism industry, now tourism is heavily dependent on the airlines industry. Now, if we can't travel, then we can't go to other places as tourists. Many places you might have just local tourists who are driving in, but there might be restrictions coming into the city. So right now there's a bit of a complexity with things because we're not just dependent on one thing, we're dependent on sometimes international bodies or other municipalities. My suggestion is be ready for things to open up. Don't just sit there and wait for things to open. Be ready for things to be different. Think about what your strategy is when things open up. How are you going to do your job in a better way? How are you going to sell in a different way? When tourists come to your city, how will you really talk to them, attract them, and add the value proposition to their lives? And I think we need to change that mindset a little bit. I'm hoping we can show more empathy, we can show more happiness, we can appreciate things more because of what we have missed during COVID-19.
So we have a very similar question regarding restaurants and how we can take advantage of the crisis to reinvent and turn the business around. But I would say that it's pretty much the same that you have said so far.
With the food industry, I mean, there's what I'm seeing right now, a little bit success, which is helping keep doors open are deliveries and pickups in many places. So you can go and pick up food, but you can't eat there, or there's delivery services and you can tie up with Zomato and Uber Eats, and they're delivering food. So my suggestion is do whatever you can to keep your doors open. If you don't have digital presence, and Mayur was talking about this, then create a website, then build a website. If you don't have e-commerce, then build e-commerce. But you've got to work with a sense of urgency and not just wait for things to be okay. Work with a sense of urgency. Enable all these things you need to have. And it's really easy to do them. Get people, hire them. They're all available online. But enable all channels for yourself where you can still sell, you can still reach out to your customers. One of the things I can recommend is reach out to your clients. If you have a database, if you have an email database, a phone database, reach out to your clients and tell them, hey, we're going to come back soon, or these are the specials we're planning to launch. Communicate with your clients and engage with your clients. Stay in their inbox, stay in front of them so that you stay relevant.
Okay, now it's time for El Mundo newspaper from Spain. We've been discussing already the speed of change. The El Mundo has a long question for you. They say the pandemic has accelerated the fourth industrial revolution in terms of home office, online teaching, urban mobility, digital payment, medical assistance, and researching, and so on. Ben Hammersley said the change we predicted for 10 years from now have occurred in just 6 weeks. So we know the world is new, it's transforming so fast, but how will the median citizen assimilate such an impact on their personal and professional life?
That's a great question. And I really believe that absolutely in some areas, we have accelerated change a lot, not in all areas. We're still struggling to find a cure for coronavirus. So we haven't been able to accelerate that all. I mean, if I could, I would have found it yesterday. But there is definitely systems and the world we have to work with. I really believe that at one level, yes, the work from home revolution has taken over and people are working from home, but many people cannot work from home. They are frustrated working from home. They want to go to an office. They want to meet other people. There's also the impact of isolation. People are isolated. People are becoming unfriendly because of social distancing and how it's being pushed down. So I don't believe it's all good, but in some areas, definitely we've made progress. we still have a lot of things to do. I mean, the world is looking at many smart cities to be built, where infrastructure will be automated, where things will be great. I think we still have to do those things. We haven't accelerated any of that, except the fact that we've worked from home. We've done an amazing job at it. I think everything else still is as it was. And I'm hoping that we can accept this change and accelerate those areas. We can, organizations can put more funding into those things that accelerate things. But as you know, the world is more complicated than that. And we will see what the impact of this will be long term. Local business, look at small businesses, the mom and pop shops, the restaurants, the hair cutting salons, the small stores everywhere. They cannot work from home. So those people have to come back. Even if they've got everything enabled from a digital perspective, they still have to serve people. They still have to do those deliveries. So a lot of complexity, I believe, in a world. And, you know, talking about Madrid, talking about Spain, Madrid and Spain is such a personal city. It's people want to meet each other. They want to see each other. So I think the digital revolution doesn't necessarily help, because the culture of a country might be different than what we, you know, are doing right now. My hopes coming out of this is, let's hope we're able to accelerate things such as drug discovery. We're able to accelerate the cure to diseases. We're able to accelerate work from home to a level where people want it, flexibility in working, and so on.
So we have another question from Reason Why, online media. It's about online payments. There is an increasing demand for payments platforms. Media has spent years trying to finance itself through this model. How far can the subscription system go? What do you think about it?
So it really depends on the market that you're trying to serve. You might be in a market where there is very minimal digital literacy. And as a media company, as an example, you might have very few people who will subscribe to your services, right? But you might be in a market where digital literacy is high and many more people will subscribe to your services digitally. So you've really got to go back and look at your customer base, your demographics, the people that you're serving, to see where they are at with respect to payments. You might spend, I don't know, X amount of money invested into enabling digital payments. But if your clients, if your demographic, if your customers don't have an option to pay digitally, then what is the use of that investment, right? So as an organization, please do the due diligence of asking your customers what do they want. And if they want to go online, then give it to them. But you can also have a staggered approach where you can stagger it for the next few years and start building that digital presence slowly rather than jump in at 100%.
So now the $1 million question, can you set 3-4 characteristics any business should acquire for being less fragile for a volatile future?
3 to 4 characteristics of businesses that are future-proof, right?
Yes.
Future-proof is a good word.
Future-proof, yeah.
Absolutely. I would say I would choose a business that is highly engaged with their clients. They know the pulse of their customers. They know exactly what their customers need today, tomorrow morning, day after tomorrow, not because customers are coming back and telling this organization, no, because the organization is so deeply involved with their clients. They always know what their clients want. And organizations like that succeed because they know what clients need and they can pivot. They can pivot and modify and give exactly what their customers want. So that's one thing that you absolutely must look at a business, highly engaged business. If you have an accounting firm, it's such a boring industry, right? Accounting. But if you have an accounting firm that absolutely knows every single client, they're communicating with them regularly, they know what they need, that is an accounting firm that knows its business. And that's just one example. I would also think a company that has a culture of learning, where people, employees are constantly given the opportunity to learn and to build themselves and to be better than they are yesterday. And I'm not just talking about credentials, because yes, in a technology company, you might have to get a certain certificate, I'm saying leaders should be involved in grooming and enhancing their customers and care, their employees, sorry, not customers. And they should care about their employees. That is an organization that has a DNA of success, and they would be high on my radar. Number three, an organization that really executes, organizations that make plans and execute. You can see their results. I don't know, real estate company, they could be, or a builder that's building one project and another project and another project. Of a restaurant that's constantly getting 5-star reviews because they're executing perfectly on everything they're doing. And there's many, many ways to doing this, but those could be some really great characteristics.
Okay, Ian, we have exactly 2 minutes. So I'm going to ask you the very last question. It's about your business and about what you do. And, you know, for 20 years, you've been advising companies on how to embrace or how to understand emerging technologies, how to include them in their businesses, their organizations. What has changed? What questions have changed? What are the different kinds of questions people are asking you? If 3 months ago they were saying, you know, how can I incorporate machine learning into my business, or how do I understand that, get my head around blockchain? Is it applicable to my industry? Today, what are they asking? Are they asking you different questions?
The questions have definitely changed. The questions have changed towards more revenue generation. How do we enable revenue generation? What processes should we enable that help us bring in more revenue? What should we do to acquire more customers? What should we do to make our website into a lead gen website? All of these questions that are around driving more revenue are very important, because the COVID-19 crisis has impacted financially a majority of the world where cash has been a problem. And I think this is the right question to ask. How do we enable more value to the world? How do we increase the revenue? And I think everybody on this call should think about at least 3 different ways in which they can pivot their business right now and enable new revenues. You should be analyzing your website to see if it is a lead gen magnet, if people will look for your products and solutions, if your website, your presence, your brand really reflects what you do for the world, and how, you know, talking about what Mayur was also saying, how do you, bring value to the world? So all of these things are what people are asking today to a huge extent. There's still questions about blockchain and AI and automation, because they are good tools to have to enable all of this that I said. Revenue generation can be easier through automation, like marketing automation and so on. So yeah, please focus on how to pivot, how to find new areas of opportunity, how to serve better, and how to find clients that you can help who need your help and that you can help with your products and services.
Right. Ian, thank you so much. We're definitely focused on, Yvonne and I, or the rest of the team at Thinking Heads, are definitely focused on generating revenue, as are, I'm sure, the audience that is listening today. Yvonne, thanks for asking the great questions. Ian, thank you for being here today and enlightening us about the future, as you always do. And thanks to Mayur Gupta as well for joining us. To everybody in Spain and Latin America and the Americas, Canada, United States, thanks for joining us. And till the next one.
Thanks,
bye, everybody.
Really appreciate your time. And just remember one thing, that the future is what you do today. So do something today, because that will create your tomorrow. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much, folks. You take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Watch out. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Gracias. Thank you.